So about a little bit over a month ago, I made a video about the Denver Nuggets and why I think they're going to be one of the teams to definitely take over and become championship contenders next year with the return of both Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. But in that video, I think I focused on those two a little bit too much and not about the surrounding pieces on this team that make them as deadly as they are. And with the trade to move both Will Barton and Monte Morris to pick up KCP and Bruce Brown, I can definitely say that this team not only upgraded in certain areas, but basically fit better with these two pieces on this team, and it gives them a whole new edge going to next year. Even with these guys not being superstars, there's some elite role players that can definitely give this team an even bigger edge. And with the offensive output and defensive upside they showed last season, I truly think this Nuggets team is about to take over, and I'll give you all the reasons why I think that. Before I get started, I've had some record-breaking months in both views and subscribers on this channel. People seem to really be liking the basketball content videos, so if you like basketball content and you need to fill for the off season until the season starts again, and even more during the season, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you here. Going to the next season, the Denver Nuggets are a curious case for a lot of analysts and NBA YouTubers and overall fans of the league because you truly don't know what you're going to get back. Jamal Murray coming off a major knee injury, Michael Porter Jr. constantly having injury problems with his back, but when those two were healthy, Michael Porter Jr. was one of the most efficient 20-point per game scorers in the NBA, and Jamal Murray was looking like he was going to break into superstardom. And pairing that next to the league two-time MVP, a top 5 player in the NBA, some may even have him top 3, in Nikola Jokic, it's very hard to count them out, but it's very hard to gauge where you think this team is going to be in the standings, depending on the rust that Jamal Murray has to break off and the injury troubles that comes along the way. But it's hard not to have a certain amount of optimism with this team and how well they can play together, considering the fact that Nikola Jokic just pulled off one of the greatest carry jobs I've seen in a while, pulling that team and that roster all the way to the NBA playoffs and genuinely being one of the most efficient offenses in the world with him on the floor, and basically one of the worst with him off the floor. And even with injuries considering and Russ being knocked off, you can't tell me adding 2 all-star players or all-star level players in both MPJ and Jamal Murray don't push that team over to another level. But even with that being said, the Denver Nuggets did something last year that I really think also kept them a little bit afloat. While their offense just simply could not sustain itself without Jokic on the floor, they didn't have a primary playmaker. They really couldn't manufacture a lot of offense without him on the floor. Their defense really took a pretty nice jump. Aaron Gordon has gotten the reputation of one of the better two-way players in the NBA. While I do think people are gassing it a little bit, he still is a very high plus defender on this team, and he has a lot of upside, and he does give you a nice offensive punch. And when you look at guys like Bones Highland, that's I think will be taking the next jump next year and be the backup point guard on this team, filling in for Monte Morris and being that guy. I think this team has such a high ceiling that it's just really hard to figure out where you're going to put them. In fact, I believe in this Nuggets team so much that I'm picking both Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic on my fantasy team for Underdog Fantasy, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play fantasy sports as of right now, and they have their double dribble tournament going on for the 2022-2023 NBA season already. You just draft your players, and overall the grand prize is about $200,000, or it's a prize pool, and you can make out with more money than you put in by WHIP being up to 2,000th place. It's only a $25 entry fee, and if you use code FLB as of right now, you get $100 matched up to your first deposit. So if you wanted to get into fantasy sports, Underdog Fantasy is the best place to go. So hit the link in the description and use code FLB for $100 matched on your first deposit. And thank you to Underdog Sports for sponsoring this video. Because right now you have teams like the Boston Celtics that just made it to the NBA Finals, and this added Malcolm Brogdon, one of the better two-way guards in the NBA, that is a pretty good playmaker, a very good shooter, and a really nice defender. He just has some injury issues, same thing like the Nuggets. When you add a player like that to an already championship level team, it's very hard to count those guys out. You have the Golden State Warriors, who just won an NBA championship. You have the LA Clippers that are coming back with Kawhi and Paul George back and adding John Wall to that roster. There's just teams all over the NBA that are both improving and getting better, and it's just really hard to gauge where this Denver Nuggets team is going to be in those standings. But in my mind, I expect them to be a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. I do think that, one, they may not rush Jamal Murray back, which is the best course of action. They won't rush either of them back, and they'll work them into the offense little by little, because with Nikola Jokic, he's shown the ability to kind of carry this team a little bit and secure some wins for you by himself. So I don't think this Denver Nuggets team is going to be going under without them playing heavy minutes, and right now letting them work their way back in and get ready for the playoffs, or at least have a great second half of the year, really boost themselves in the standings, is the best way possible to manufacture and really build chemistry on this team. Because right now the Clippers are gonna have to do the same thing. You don't know what the Golden State Warriors is gonna look like, because they're gonna have to pay a lot of these guys. You don't really know what else other teams in Western Conference are gonna look like, because they have to also gel. So the Denver Nuggets aren't really in that bad of a space right now. And then adding somebody like KCP, who already a championship level player, has championship level experience, a great role player, and one of the better 3-and-D guys in the NBA, it's a perfect player to put on this team next to somebody like Nikola Jokic, especially when the replacement for him before this was Monte Morris. And while Monte Morris is a great player, he's simply just a secondary ball handler, and somebody that's pretty good at working the pick and roll, and a average shooter at best, but not really a great defender. He's really too small for that sometimes. I don't think his services will be that much needed when you have somebody like Jamal Murray on this team, and then you have somebody with that potential that Bones Highland does have. The same thing goes for Will Barton, a player that's pretty good off ball, but genuinely his best assets is when he does have the ball in his hands to score. But he's not that great of an on-ball player. He's a very good role player that can get you a bucket here and there. But having somebody replace him like KCP is definitely a very big upgrade. And with all that being encapsulated on this team, then you give me somebody like Jamal Murray that's coming back, that, let's be real here, Jamal Murray, I don't know why people make these bubble Jamal jokes, because he was genuinely the same player in the regular season. He was having a career year in 2021. 21 points per game, 4 rebounds, 4.8 assists on 47% shooting, 40% from 3. Genuinely one of the most efficient point guards and scorers in the NBA, and somebody that, an elite point guard that you can put next to Nikola Jokic, that is a great second option. And you look at Michael Porter Jr., who, let me be real here, I completely understand why people are a little bit skeptical with him, with just how bad of injury concerns he's had throughout his career already, and this back issue being consistent with him. But he was still able to play 60 games in 2021 and give you an efficient 19 points per game and 7 rebounds on 54% shooting and nearly 45% from 3 on 6 attempts a game. That level of efficiency is just something you can't look past. That is some insane level of play. And then you combine that with the defense like KCP and somebody like Aaron Gordon can play, and overall team defense that these guys can overall play. And I think Jamal Murray is a little bit of an underrated defender. Nikola Jokic, we already know, is kind of an underrated defender because people think he's just ass over there, when he's genuinely a pretty average to maybe above average defender in the NBA. This team just has way too much upside to ignore. And generally right now, the only teams that I'm comfortable enough to put over them in any standings is both the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics. I don't think the LA Clippers are going to be able to gel that well. And again, Kawhi is also coming off a major knee injury as well, and you don't know what you may get back from him. John Wall, you don't know how that may mix on that team. And overall, the Clippers just really haven't lived up to expectations, and they've given me no reason to truly believe in what they can do going into this season. So really, those two teams, being the Warriors and the Celtics, are the only two teams that I can think I would push over them, because those teams have elite level of chemistry, and they've made additions to their roster, or they've been able to keep players to keep them at a high level, and they've shown that they can consistently be good. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think the Nuggets can be a top 3 team in the league? Do you think that we're kind of gassing them a little bit too much, and maybe they're not as good as people think they are? I don't know why you think that, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. But that being said, Seth LP, that's my time, and I'm out.